أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. To my brothers and sisters in Islam, and to our respected and welcome non-Muslim friends and guests, I begin with the traditional greetings of the Muslim community. Peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum. As the moderator for this afternoon's program, it falls upon me to make some introductory comments that will lay the foundation for what is to come, God willing. We are here for a very important reason. The purpose behind this gathering, while it specifically relates to what many of us, most of us here, consider to be an unjust incarceration, what many of us consider to be a political detention, it is in fact an issue that transcends young brother Hashmi as an individual. It transcends his family. This is really an issue about the two Americas. And I want to commend the MSA, the Muslim Students Association of Columbia University, for organizing, hosting this very important forum. I think a university, and especially one as well-known and prestigious as Columbia in New York City, is a very fitting venue for a program of this nature. Muslim America, and I would add by extension America under siege. The Fahad Hashmi story. The war on terrorism has become a war of terrorism. A conflict is raging that is engulfing many innocents, both here and abroad. There is a lot of collateral damage being done in this war. I wish I could say Brother Hashmi is the only case like this in America, but that simply is not the case. There are many Hashmis throughout this potentially great but deeply disturbed country called America. In reflecting on the purpose, for this gathering, and reflecting on history, I was reminded of an observation that was made by one of the elders of the constitutional movement in this country that resulted from the revolution. The revolution, the American Revolution that led to this country's independence from Britain. One of the senior elders of the Constitutional Convention of 1789 was asked at the conclusion of that convention, Benjamin Franklin, by one of the reporters of that age, "What have you wrought?" And Benjamin Franklin's response was, "A republic, if you can keep it." Now, a republic is theoretically the highest form of representative government. And the republic in this country, in America, is under siege, as exemplified by this case and many other cases like it. There are two Americas, and the challenge that we have in this country, those of us of goodwill, irrespective of what religion we belong to, irrespective of what political party we belong to, irrespective of what race or class we come from, the challenge that confronts concerned citizens in this country is to help this country live up to the better part of itself, to advance and defend the better of the two Americas. And that's what this forum, in large part, is all about. Now, before I introduce the speakers for this afternoon's program, I want to share a little information from the first page of the introduction of a book that my organization published for the first time about maybe 2.5 years ago, and then the second edition of this book just came out a few months ago, a book entitled Islam and Terrorism, Myth versus Reality. Because see, much of the war against terrorism is a propaganda war. And it's the propaganda and the effectiveness of the propaganda on the other side that has made the judicial system in America so poisonous. It has created an atmosphere that turns the theoretical constitutional guarantees that every citizen and resident in this country is supposed to enjoy on its head. For those who are not part of the favored class in this country, the presumption of innocence until proven guilt is turned completely on its head, and you are presumed guilty until proven innocent. We've seen this in case after case after case involving Muslims all over the country. And the reason for this is because of the very effective propaganda campaign on the other side. By those who not only don't wish Muslims well in this country, but don't wish the better of the two Americas well either. In a very unfortunate book of malicious propaganda targeting Islam and Muslims entitled Infiltration by a writer by the name of Paul Sperry, he and his publisher Nelson Current described their book as follows, and I quote, "This is the untold story about the silent yet extremely dangerous threat from the Muslim establishment in America. An alarming expose of how Muslims have for years been secretly infiltrating American society, government, and culture, pretending to be peace-loving and patriotic while supporting violent jihad and working to turn America into an Islamic state." In this powder keg of a book, you'll learn how radical Muslims have penetrated the U.S. military, the FBI, the Homeland Security Department, and even the White House, where subversive Muslims and Arabs have received top-secret clearance. How they've infiltrated the chaplains program in the federal and state prison systems, a top recruiting ground for Al-Qaeda. How they've successfully run influence operations against our political system with the help of both Democrats and Republicans badgering corporate boards into Islamizing the workplace. And lastly, how we've been utterly duped about what the Quran does and doesn't teach. Sadly, much of anti-Western terrorism is simply Islam in practice, the text of the Quran in action, end quote. Now this kind of propaganda and the atmosphere that results from this kind of propaganda factors into the atmosphere that will exist in the courtroom when Brother Hashmi comes to trial, when Fahad comes to trial. It will permeate the consciousness of many of the jurors, if not all of the jurors. And this is something that the defense attorneys will have to work against.